We're back this Monday to talk about Law 44
Yeah.
from the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Law 44: Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The mirror reflects reality, but it is also the perfect tool for deception. When you mirror your enemies doing exactly as they do, they cannot figure out your strategy. The mirror effect mocks and humiliates them, making them overreact. By holding up a mirror to their psyches, you seduce them with the illusion that you share their values. By holding up a mirror to their actions, you teach them a lesson. Few can resist the power of the mirror effect. And that's Law 44, which, just to open, it talks about the mirror effect being a way that you can seduce them with the illusion that you share their values.
Yeah.
That one, I think, for me is the most, like, one of the most powerful things of this law, because this isn't necessarily always going to be used to, on enemies, or um, to teach somebody a lesson, but on a day-to-day basis, just to make somebody, like, to be agreeable with somebody or to connect with somebody. We kind of we kind of do this mirror effect, I think. And I've seen, I mean, you do it, I've done it. Like, we're at different events and we're connecting, talking to different people. You kind of find what's relatable with the person to connect with them. It's, that's part of establishing a connection. And the mirror effect, I think, is kind of figuring out, maybe not faking what you have in common, but maybe finding actually something that you do have in common.
Something that you do have in common. We're all human beings. So if you are a student of listening, if you're a student of watching,
Yeah.
look at people, what they do, what they wear, of course, what they say, but beyond what they say, watching people in general. I remember going to Las Vegas, and my dad would sit down somewhere in a restaurant, and he would spend 2 3 hours, and we'd come back and he was having a coffee or whatever, and I remember asking him, what are you doing here so long? And he goes, hey, I'm watching people. It's an art, watching people go by and try to figure them out as they walk by,
Yeah.
you know because of what they wear. Some people wear shorts, some people are in a suit and tie. Some people wear expensive jewelry and they show it. Some people,
Yeah.
you can kind of get a feel for what people are wearing. Some people wear hats, that are
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, it's interesting to try and
Cowboys, boots, yeah,
you try to put maybe a story to that person.
yeah.
But in terms of, you know, convincing somebody to do something and trying to, like, make them feel you're on the same playing field, I think it's really important.
I think so too. And I'll tell you what, I can think of a few instances where if I had known about this law, it would have gone a lot better for me. I'm talking business wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, I even when you read some of these laws, you need to keep them in the forefront. But I wish I would have known about this law
Yeah.
in a few instances, looking back, you know, I
Is there something that
didn't do the
you
right.
is there something that you think, like, a situation that you've seen this take place, where somebody is, let's say, like, using what Robert Greene is calling the mirror effect?
I think so. I one time, one of my friends invited me to come and meet this very, very successful businessman. And I don't think that my buddy knew quite well on the day that he invited me, but I remember it was an hour drive. And so we went out there, and it just so happens that this gentleman was having a meeting with people from business that were representing a one of his businesses, because he owns several, And they were having a meeting, and these people were coming from Mexico. And I come in, I shake hands with the gentleman, and extremely informal. He says, "Come and join the meeting," you know. And they passed us over to a very nice room with a very large table, and there was like seven of us. And I'm sitting there. I'm first day I ever meet this man, and they're talking business. You know, uh, it was weird, but it was really weird. Very informal. The guy was extremely open. He ended up being a really cool guy at the end of the day. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting because I didn't know about these laws, but they they were presenting an option, and the guy that was coming from Mexico was not buying it. He wasn't gonna go for it, and it was really very interesting. If the mirror effect would have been there for him, you know, I think the meeting would have gone in a different direction.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when you and I are door knocking a lot, you and I are on the streets a lot. We meet people from all walks of life, and in the exchange, you just never know what can happen. You just never know,
Yeah.
you know? Even on the people that we know, one day it can be one thing, and then the next day, because of something that has transpired in their life, it's another,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think that this law, you have to be careful in terms of um not offending somebody, because um they can realize that you're just kind of playing to this idea of a mirror effect, kind of just copying them.
Right.
Um, Even though Robert Greene states some examples where individuals in history have done that and they're still able to use this effect. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like in a day-to-day situation, it could be as simple as like body language, that you're noticing the other person's body language and you have to adjust to it. I always heard that, like, if somebody has their arms crossed when they're talking to you, they're kind of closed to the conversation. I think that some of that you have to take with a grain of salt. I don't think it's every situation, but there are some instances where, yeah, when someone closes up like that, they're not really interested
No.
in what you're talking about. So you
Yeah.
have to figure out, like, okay, but by copying, let's say, the effect that they're doing, it could be a way of disarming them, because maybe they feel threatened, so that's why they're crossing their arms. So, those are little details that you have to pay attention to.
You got
Like you
that
said,
right.
observing people and listening.
Yeah. I remember trying a long time ago to sell a policy to a husband and wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know exactly what happened. I don't remember the question exactly, but I remember the husband going like this and just sat back in his chair, um, no longer leaning forward.
Right.
And we were in my office, so we were on the desk, and he just sat back in his chair and like, okay, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was something I said, but I remember that specifically.
Well, that's another one, right?
Yeah, he
Somebody
just,
leaning in,
yeah, leaning in,
they're
potentially
interested.
they're interested, but this guy did the opposite.
Yeah.
He just went back on his chair.
Yeah.
And his face also, I could tell he was done with it.
Yeah.
He wasn't there by his own choice, on his own accord. I think the wife pulled him in, and so
Yeah.
he wasn't happy. It was a life insurance sale.
I think picking up on that stuff, it makes us better salespeople, better people.
I think so.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I've heard Robert Greene even say you could be talking to somebody and their feet are pointed in a different direction. It's like they're ready to get out of that conversation as fast as possible. Or their eyes are wandering. They're ready to move on. And so you have to pick up on that, because
Oh,
um those are it, the only way I think this idea of a mirror effect works is if you kind of have studied the other person and kind of see what their interests are and what can actually make you connect with them.
Yeah. Well, I remember walking into an office one time, just you and me,
Mm-hmm.
and the gentleman allowed us to come into his office, his personal office. Remember that? And he had a bunch of golf memorabilia, and was it USC or UCLA? I forget which one. Do you remember that?
I think USC.
USC and stuff like that. And so he was an alumni. And we it was our first meeting, and I said, "Hey, I really like your memorabilia, this and that and whatever." And he went on and talked about it for about 20 minutes. And that
Yeah.
was a way of connecting with him and what he wanted to do. You hit, what do they call them, hot buttons, and they go off on it, and the conversation becomes more friendly,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to get your ideas across maybe in a better feel of environment. Because if a person feels that they're there to be sold something, they might have their defenses up, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're able to break in a little bit, you know, not necessarily go right into the sale or anything like that. I think anybody that does that doesn't have the experience to, you just don't do that. You need to create rapport. And,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we need to sell something,
Right.
but you just can't be brutally, breaking the wall down,
Yeah. It's
just
not it's not an effective way of.
communicating, and if the need is there, it's going to get done. See, that's the other thing. After you do it so long, you gain some experience that if you're bringing something of value and the person you're sitting with needs it, you're there.
Yeah.
But using the mirror effect would help tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. You know.
He divides it into four. Did you hear those four items?
Yeah.
Yeah. The neutralizing effect, the narcissist effect, the moral effect, and what is it?
Hallucinatory. I think
Hallucinatory effect.
hallucinatory. Yeah. 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 It's I think with this one.
You have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. You do.
You need to be careful because somebody that's been around, you they might be able to spot you right off the top. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to be careful. There's nothing like being genuine with people, man.
Yeah.
And if you're using one of these, there better be some degree of genuineness in there, because if there isn't, you're gonna get caught. Just like what's his name? I always have trouble remembering this guy's name.
Alcibiades.
Alcibiades.
Yeah. Yeah, but he successfully, that's one thing Robert Greene brings up, is that he successfully was able to jump sides multiple times
Yeah, but he
from
also got murdered at the end.
at the end and he gets murdered. Yeah, because so
They got
eventually,
him. I mean, they had enough of him.
well, that's the thing
Jump.
that Robert Greene says that he took it too far
Right, right.
because he created so many. Because
Enemies.
if somebody realizes that you were not genuine with them, you were just using, let's say, the mirror effect, copying them, make them feel like you're part of them, and then you go and leave them, which is what he did multiple times. Eventually, that person can develop hate for you because they realized they were kind of swindled, You weren't real with them.
Correct, because you jump ship and then you're emulating somebody else that has, let's say, the opposite
Correct.
ideas. And then these people are saying, well, wait a minute. When you were over here, you were thinking this way. Now you're over there, you're thinking the other way. You're just a
Yeah.
con artist.
Right. But he
So,
was able to do that, and he went from what the Athenians to the Spartans to the Persians back to I think the Spartans. I mean,
yeah.
he was able to do that, and
Well, the
he
Spartans
successfully.
ended up killing him.
From what I researched, they don't really know who killed him.
Oh, okay.
But
Uh,
it was one of those people he offended. It could have been a Spartan,
I read that it was the Spartans that got,
the king, because he,
well, I mean, he got the queen pregnant.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff,
mean,
but
well, I mean, if you want a death sentence, I mean,
he was successful at multiple times. Uh, let's say getting out of, because they were trying to kill him multiple times, and he was able to talk his way through the mirror effect and make people feel like, oh no, he's back, he's one of us again, or whatever the case, and they let him live until eventually he, was
yeah,
exiled.
you have to be careful. Um, life is so short.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too philosophical here. They also talked about Socrates, right? That he also was able to, yeah, Socrates, that he turned around and had Socrates believing that he was, you know, in the
He,
simplicity of things and so forth and so on. So Socrates thought, oh, I have this type of effect with this man. And only I have this type of effect where I can bring him to the true value of what life is. And when he's not with me, he's out gallivanting.
yeah,
But so yeah, he even convinced Socrates. So he must have been smooth operator,
yeah.
this guy.
There are people like that that we encounter,
Yeah, they're
and
like soaps. You can't grab them. They're slippery.
they
They're
don't let you get
soaps.
too close. They
Even
don't,
if you corner them. Even if you corner them,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like you may be reminding me of like jujitsu. Apparently, you're constantly looking at different ways. It's kind of like a puzzle, from what I understand, to get out of a tough situation. I don't know it too well, but it's kind of like that. If you can psychologically get out of difficult situations, that's a skill.
Yeah. Well, um, these folks apparently are very savvy, very smart, and they're prepared.
Yeah,
So when you're prepared for whatever, whether it is a business acquisition, a takeover, whatever the case may be, you're prepared, you're going to war. And somebody on the other side better be ready to battle you, you
yeah,
know? But there's a few ingredients. It's like cooking a meal. There's a few ingredients that are a must in all of this stuff. And I think being genuine is one of them, you know, being truthful. And being truthful is, for example, I was in a meeting one time where um, prior to the meeting, I was preview to some information. We go into the meeting. The meeting lasted about 35 minutes, maybe 40. But when we came out, I thought that the person that was with me was not truthful to the other party. And I questioned him on it. And I said, "Hey, you you didn't put all your cards on the table. You really, I think you misled."
mm,
And he said, "Did I?" And he got offended. He says, "You should watch your words very carefully." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Did I mislead him? Or did I not provide more information than was what requested? Did I really mislead him? Did I not answer every question truthfully? Go back and think about it. I answered every question truthfully. I just didn't provide additional information that I might have that could create an issue, a big, huge issue in this case,
mm,
which at the end of the day, it may not be relevant. And so, it, because
yeah,
I felt, and I was young, I was new, and I felt, hey, you've got more information that you can, but, as I went back, he was right and I was wrong. Um, if there's a right and wrong, I'll say that I was in the wrong because he did not supply additional information, but only because it wasn't requested.
mm,
It wasn't in the in the field of, you know, view, okay?
Yeah.
And so, so being truthful.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? I didn't do a lot of deals with this guy. I didn't feel comfortable, even though I agreed right there, as I go back, that
Yes.
is if you have information that is of a pertinent issue, what do they call it? It's a principal issue to what's going on. It should be supplied, whether it's requested or not. I feel. I don't know. Some lawyers, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I know some people, that I've seen some programs on TV where, hey, what that's irrelevant. That's not preview to this case, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. It's a touchy area, right? It's great. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a line between sharing maybe more than is necessary and getting your, selling. Like it's like in sales, when you have the sale, you shut up, right? Once they say yes, you stop talking. And sometimes I've talked myself out of a sale. It's like you don't necessarily have to share all the information that's in your head. Now, if it's like pertinent information, I don't know. It's tough. You got to make that decision based on each situation. You know, it's hard because at
Well,
the end
we
of
are
the
in the
day,
real estate business. And in the real estate business, there's three things that you have to do that are of eminent importance, right? Disclose, disclose, and disclose some more. Sorry,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's going to keep everybody out of trouble. The best thing is to tell everybody right
right.
from the get-go. I mean, I've had clients that have told me, "Hey, between you and me, I don't like those sentences. Between you and me, whoa, whoa."
That's different though, because you're talking in a business setting, and I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily talking like in that relation situation, but that, yeah, absolutely, you have to. That's legally you have to disclose.
You
That's
have to
different.
disclose.
Yeah, I'm talking more like in instances where not necessarily like a business transaction, because there I would say you
Oh,
have to disclose.
in a bit,
You have to
absolutely,
disclose. Yeah.
absolutely. But I've had people in business transactions saying, "Hey, between you and me, it isn't that."
Yeah.
If you tell me something that it's pertinent to this deal,
Yeah.
it's going to get disclosed.
Yeah.
And because our careers are on the line, our reputation, right?
Yeah, and
And your
you
reputation
can
is
hurt.
everything. Wasn't that law number 5? Reputation? Protect
Yes.
reputation above all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no, reputation is extremely important.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I would say you have to figure out in that situation, like, am I going to divulge too much information now? In terms of I'm not talking about like a real estate transaction. I'm just saying, again, we're talking situations where you're trying to advance in this world of power and all those
these are
different.
power moves. Is something that you keep bringing that back to me because I get sidetracked.
Yeah.
These are power moves.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. They are. Yeah. Robert Greene, like we say, is not talking about being a good person. He's talking about there are
Yeah,
people that are like this that will use these laws to deceive you, to gain power. That's it. And it could be at your detriment.
for
And
sure.
so
And
you have to be aware of the Alcibiades types. Alcibiades, he was a Greek general. You have to be aware of these types of individuals that can come into your life and
really,
wreak,
really
wreak.
mess you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about it. It could be your wife, it could be your husband. I mean, the other day I was on the internet and the guy was saying, the worst thing that you can do in your life is marry the wrong person. Well, what is the wrong person? And how do you know it's the wrong person? You know? That's number one. And then the other thing that this thing said, which I want to throw out there before,
Okay.
it says, the mirror effect. It reflects reality,
Mm-hmm.
but is also the perfect tool for deception. So the mirror effect has two sides to it. One of them is potentially reality, but the other one, it says, is a perfect tool for deception. And the other thing that I read in between the lines, and because to prepare for these podcasts, I know we do independent research. You do yours and I do mine. And I found something that I thought was a gem. And it was a gentleman that was explaining this type of effect, not using Robert Greene's uh, 48 Laws
Examples.
of Power.
Yeah.
And he said, remember, when you look in the mirror, everything is reversed. The image that you get back
Mm.
is reversed. Leonardo da Vinci did all kinds of stuff in reverse. He did the writing backwards so that you had to use a mirror to read the writing properly so
Interesting.
that he could hide things from the Catholic Church so that he would not get in trouble. Okay? So the guy is saying, hey, you can use the mirror effect all you want,
Yeah.
but remember, you maybe subconsciously are being played because remember, the image that comes back, it's in reverse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, don't blow my mind even further, because I'm already
Yeah.
digging into this stuff so deep.
It's not real life.
It's
It
it's
there's it's an illusion.
it's an illusion.
And then the other thing is that he says when we look in the mirror, Robert Greene says that we tend to avoid looking too closely at our imperfections. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we think this is how society looks at us.
Right.
But that's not the case.
We
That's
don't want to see the wrinkles, so we don't close. Yeah.
yeah,
But the guy was saying, hey, it's a reflection of reality, no doubt about it, but it's also a perfect tool for deception. And then he
definitely.
goes on into it and he says, remember,
Definitely.
it's in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an interesting tool. It's an interesting
I
tool to
think it
use.
works, and I think if you use the mirror effect, and like everything is like cooking a meal.
Mhm.
They have little
Yeah,
salt and pepper, and you got, so as long as you use genuineness along with it to a certain extent to make your point across. And once the point gets sent, maybe the person that's receiving it, it's more likely to embrace it if it's done
in that form.
in that format or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I can think back some instances where it would have done me really, really good to have known about this law.
Yeah, what I think is really important here, and I've heard Robert Greene say it before, is that it's a cop out to say this is just the way I am. They can like me or not like me. That's who I am. That's a cop out. According to Robert Greene, we should try to seduce the other person, whether it's with the mirror effect or whatever other law you want to use. We should, in this life, try to make people, believe that we are, let's say, on their side, make people see that we're there to help them, try to form alliances, gain power, that this is something that we do constantly. And just to say, I am this way, this is the way I believe, that is a cop out. Now, I think there's certain things in life where you want to stay true to, and that's where we are bringing it up constantly that this isn't necessarily a way to live a good life. Uh, I would say, Marcus Aurelius might disagree in terms of like a virtuous life, to be, a virtuous person, somebody of character. These laws are not, I don't think this book goes with the other, with the 48 laws, the meditations, because it has nothing, I don't think it has anything to do with this. I think this is purely power. And according to meditations, Marcus Aurelius was trying to um
Live a virtuous life.
yeah, and
Okay.
and live a different life than. So that's why I think it's a good combination, and we're using our real life experiences,
Hmm.
things that we've seen, you've seen, being in business 40 something years, me growing up also in business, being in it in a long time, and we're constantly encountering different people.
Oh, we just had a fast one pulled on us last week, and I wasn't aware of it until you brought it to light. There was a couple things I was unaware of, and I think it's a fast one, that was pulled on us. And
It's
you just get to know that person, and you're careful
yeah,
moving forward
yeah,
with that particular person.
yeah,
You always have to dot your I's and cross your T's, but there are certain people that you have to be a little bit even more concerned with.
yeah. The common use is like they're sharks,
Sharks.
and if you're gonna be swimming with the sharks,
But somebody would say that we are also,
yeah,
you
I
know?
think I think if you're a student of, let's say, Robert Greene and just psychology and wanting to self-improvement, you have to understand that these are things that are happening in life. These are games that are played.
Yes.
And so I think that's the idea here. I don't know if there's anything else you want to
Well,
throw
I
in.
do. You made the contrast with Marcus Aurelius' Meditation and all the other books that are the laws, right?
Yeah.
Well, one stark difference in the books is that these 48 laws of power and, you know, the laws of human nature, 33
Strategies of
so
war.
war, all this stuff, these are power moves on the way up. You're trying to go up.
Or
Marcus
to
Aurelius was the emperor, the most important man of that time.
That's a good point.
He was already on top. He didn't have to worry about climbing anymore.
No,
He
but
had to worry about being true to himself because everybody around him would tell him how good you are and this and that because he was already at the peak of his.
how many people are there and not concerned about being a
Oh,
virtuous person? The other thing
absolutely.
is that I would say these books are also not only getting to the top but maintaining that position.
Yes,
And
I
this
agree.
is Meditations is his diary, basically Marcus Aurelius's diary of trying to keep a level head when
Yes.
he's at the top. But
I mean, at the top of tops, I mean, he was the emperor.
he was the emperor.
I mean, if
Uh,
if he didn't like something that you said, he could put you to death in 10 seconds.
right.
No questions asked. A man that yields that kind of power. Whew, can you imagine how hard it must be to stay grounded?
Yeah.
He had somebody behind him at all times. I don't remember if it was a slave or somebody behind him at all time telling him, "Hey, psst, you're just a man. You're only just a man."
We met a mother and her daughter that worked together, and we were telling them about our podcast and the 48 Laws of Power, and she says, "Oh, that's the book that was banned
From jail.
from jail. That's the
Yes.
book that was banned from jail." And it's correct because you're looking at manipulating people and
The guards,
the guards
the
and the
prisoners began to manipulate the guards.
yeah, so it's a dangerous book. It's a dangerous book. There's just no way around it. And I think that, some people would be like, well, why are you guys so interested in this book? If it's a book of deception and all these things. Well, I think that if you're not aware that these things are happening to you, you're just a sitting duck.
Yes.
You don't have to live by these. You don't have to use these on other people or whatever the case, but you have to protect yourself.
You can use the ability to learn and become wiser on these things so that you can tell when you're being played, when you can tell that you're being, guided, into oblivion.
Yep.
And it may save you and your family a lot of grief by, you know, knowing some of this.
Correct.
And so, yeah, that's definitely one of the ways to use it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to use it for their own advantage and everything. And, I mean, these are power moves,
Yep.
When you go into a negotiation, the best may the best man woman win, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, I
uh,
don't know. I've heard some interesting stats on about how good you are at negotiating your pay. Like you might be extremely qualified, but if you're not good at negotiating your pay at that place, somebody else who maybe isn't as good as what you do, but is a great negotiator, will start off with a higher pay, and then to catch up to that person could take forever. Now, one would argue, well, in society you get paid what you give to society. In a without politics, I would say yes, like if there were no politics involved, but no, somebody who's a favorite, we were talking about it yesterday, somebody who has a friend in a powerful position,
absolutely.
they will get the
Well,
advantage.
I mean,
That's it.
th-
Human
since
nature.
history began,
Yeah.
yeah, since history began. Even if you were a caveman, and you had an
You
extra
got a
one,
friend
and
there?
his buddy got the first, morsel of food or whatever you call it, because he was your
Yeah.
buddy.
So
So,
we're figuring out what next book we're going to review for our series, but these are a couple, and if anyone has any suggestions on which ones, we've had a few people comment, and thank you for that. Because we're looking at what book we're going to review next.
because we're coming to an end.
We're coming to an end on the 48 Laws. Thank you for everybody for listening. Anything else you want to throw in?
No, we're good.
Wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you.